I spent my first year of undergrad at UC Berkeley. And after a year, I transferred to Brown, and I studied economics and international relations. I don't think I was ready for it, to be honest. It's a lot of freedom, and a lot with freedom comes responsibility. Colleges are looking for candidates that are well lopsided. Like, to me, like, just because you have an app doesn't mean you have tech.
That's true. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode on Tech Talks podcast. So I know we've been on a bit of a break, but we have a really nice episode out today with our guest Sophia Ashai, who Ali will be telling you about.
In today's episode, we will be talking about many different things, starting from college applications, moving on towards her experience studying at Brown, as well as her experience as specifically as a tech investor. Hope you guys enjoy this and learn something from it.
Okay, so basically the first question that we have for you is that we'll get into what's your current venture, but can you tell us a bit about your prior education, like which universities did you attend and what were your majors over there?
Sure. I grew up in Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad. I also spent a little bit of time living in China. But I was at KGS from basically like the ninth grade onwards. Like I was there for like part of middle school. But ninth grade onwards, I was at KGS. I graduated in 2012. And I spent my first year of undergrad at UC Berkeley. And after a year, I transferred to Brown. And I studied economics and international relations. While I was at Brown, I spent a little bit of time interning at Goldman Sachs, which I didn't love. And after I graduated, I worked in tech at a solar energy startup in Boston, which I did for about 3 years before moving back home in 2020. And I've been a tech investor working in M&A
Ever since you've come to
private equity, venture capital in Karachi ever since. Sorry?
Yeah, ever since you came in Pakistan, like you've been a tech investor.
Yeah, I also do traditional private equity. I do traditional M&A, basically, if it's a financial service, I have probably provided it to a client at some point.
Yeah. Also, you mentioned that, you did your undergrad at Brown. So, like, how well did Brown prepare you for the real life? And how was your experience overall in Brown?
I do think that I learned a lot at Brown, but I do think that most of what I learned, I did learn on the job. I think, I took like one class on investments, I took one class on corporate finance, but what I learned at Brown was how to communicate with people, how to be comfortable articulating an argument in front of an audience, and how to construct an argument and defend a position. I learned how to work with clients one-on-one. That was definitely something I learned on the job.
Also, can you tell us like a bit about your experience, like studying in an Ivy League school, obviously?
So I think what you realize is schools are just schools and people are just people. And I think that what makes a school like Brown special is not really that your peers are necessarily any smarter or dumber than they would be at any other institution. But I think it's really that like Brown is a place that really spoils you. You get there's a lot of safety for you to experiment, and it gives you a lot of opportunities to try new things and fail. And it's going to be there to catch you when you fall. I think at a school like a public institution, or like just a larger institution, like there's not as much care given to each member of the student body, and I think that's what makes it really special. That said, I do think that kids who attend larger schools probably walk out of their undergraduate institutions a decent bit more resilient, depending on what you study and depending on your individual experience.
That's true. And also you mentioned Brown helps you to experiment, and like we've seen Brown has an, I think, open curriculum. So like like how is that better in a way? Like, how does how is, like, because I don't think a lot of schools do have, I'm not sure, but I saw that there was this one feature about Brown having an open
Yeah, Brown
How-
is special that way.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, I wrote about the open curriculum in my application. I don't think I was ready for it, to be honest. It's a lot of freedom. And a lot with freedom comes responsibility and like some sense of direction. And I was a kid who walked into college without a lot of direction. Like I knew I wanted to do well, but I didn't really know what that meant or how to do well per se. So like I was going to school with an open curriculum. There's a few ways to do it. Like one of my best friends from Brown, like he was choosing, like he's a Faisalabadi boy, like he got into Brown and Yale. And he was like, for me, choosing Brown was the easiest decision I've ever made because he was like, I don't want to read a book ever again. And in Brown, I don't have to. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to read. He's like, I don't want to take English classes. I don't want to take, I don't want to study anthropology ever. I'm a hardcore mechanical engineer, hardware
Can
engineer.
relate.
I only want to do that.
We can
And
relate.
that's exactly what he did.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he did. And like, I don't even think he told his parents he got into Yale. So like to him, it was just like such an
It was
irrelevant.
like, no, it
It
was
was like so
no
irrelevant to him.
decision, only Brown.
He was just like absolutely not. And that's exactly what he did. Like he spent all of his time in the hardware engineering lab. He made a bunch of robots. He's like, that's what he wanted to do. I, on the other hand, was like, I want to take all the classes. So I think I would have been just as happy, in a sense, at a school like U Chicago or Columbia, which have a super heavy core because I basically created a core for myself. So yeah, it's a lot of freedom, but you should know it works best for people who really know what they want.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
That makes sense. I think that's with any open curriculum. Like, as long as you know what you're doing, I think you'll do well wherever you go. Irrespective,
Yeah.
even if you go to an Ivy League, you go to like
Yeah.
normal school, even if you go up to like somewhere over here, I feel like
You can go
it
anywhere.
won't matter as much as long as you know what you want to do and like you have a sense of direction.
You're
You'll always find
passionate
something.
about what you want to do, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, the
Like
final
I took 5 classes every semester and I took them in all different departments. Because I was trying to figure out what I really liked. But I don't know if
How
it's
did
the
you
most
figure that out,
interesting
Wesley?
time. I
When did
don't
it
think I
click?
ever did. I don't think I ever did, to be
So
honest.
you're
Oh,
still experimenting?
Yeah. They say you're gonna go to college and find yourself. I never did.
Yeah,
I found something.
I think that's just a saying.
Yeah. I mean, I know myself a lot better today than I did when I graduated 6 or 7 years ago. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But
But again,
don't
life
have it all
is
figured
all
out.
about experimentation. Like, no one really knows where they're going. It's just, a journey along the entire way.
Exactly.
Also, like, since you've been through this entire application process, what's one piece of advice that you would give us students who are like right now through like this entire process? Because it's so stressful. It's so stressful. Like, I have this one uni app which is due in 18 days, and I still haven't figured out like what to do.
That's okay. Just be honest.
Just because-
Don't pretend to be something you're not. Don't be the person who you think they want. Colleges are looking for candidates that are well lopsided. You will do well to remember this term, well lopsided.
Well, lopsided.
They're looking for the marine biologist tuba player. They're looking for the like a tech geek who likes dogs or something. They need to be able to put you in a box, like in their head. Like
Yeah.
they need to be able to read your application and say, this person is interested in this, and this is what they will bring to our school.
That's
The easier you make that for the admissions officer, the better, because you want to make their jobs easy.
And I've seen, when you're honest, it like shows in your application, like you speak
It
out.
does.
Yeah.
It does. Like, don't pretend. Like, I think it's so, like, there's so many people write these like really pretentious,
Yeah, over exaggerating.
like you just like nonsense essays. try to I think honesty and an authentic voice do shine through.
All right. So, I want to ask you. You mentioned working at Goldman Sachs, and you said there wasn't an experience that you loved per se. So, how was it, and what went so wrong?
So I was interning on the sales and trading floor in the summer of 2015. So this was a long time ago. I was 21 years old, and I just realized that I didn't think about this too much, before I started working there, but I realized very quickly that so 60% of the interns were men, and 40% were women. I would say probably like 80% of them were white, if not more. And I think that, yeah, the people who I just realized that it's a culture where, like, a lot of it really places a huge emphasis on belonging, on being part of the firm, on being part of this institution, and everyone takes a lot of pride in the institution. But I think it's also important to be aware of what constitutes belonging. And it's not competence, that's for sure. Everyone who interns is competent. It's not that. It's who do you really connect with, I think. And naturally, given the demographics of the class, like, and like sales and trading is like a very like high energy, like there's a lot of athletes, that like intern in that division. There's a lot of partner sons that were interning with me. A lot of the kids like grew up on Long Island or had parents who worked in investment banking in the city, like in Manhattan. So there was a language and a code that I didn't really speak. And it took me a little while to understand what that language was. Right? I was really focused on like demonstrating competence, but I didn't understand how to demonstrate belonging.
That makes sense.
And it took
So
me
then,
a
how did
while
you?
to learn the language that existed within the firm. And I think that made it hard.
Do you think that was something that was also present at Brown? Because I think that's something that a lot of people think, oh, if you go to Harvard, the majority of stuff is done by people who've been doing it their generations. I remember listening to this girl on YouTube, and she was talking about how, for example, engineering clubs, it was mostly people, oh, yeah, their siblings did this, so they were now able to do it. And like, XYZ owned a building on campus, so that's where the club was hosted, hence he was president, stuff like that.
It helps.
So it does exist.
Of course
Definitely.
it does. Of course it does.
Yeah.
Of course it does. Of course, you will
But
go to
was it
school.
was
You
it
will
more
go to school
prominent?
with kids whose grandfathers' names are on the buildings. Of course you will. That's the nature of the institution. That said, that doesn't mean they're bad people. It's like not their fault. I remember I had a really funny interaction my first weekend round where like this one, I was like walking out of some like frat party or something, and this boy just burst into tears, and he like fell into my arms, and he was like, I don't deserve to be here. And I was like, first I was like, who are you? But like my second was like, oh my God, like you poor child, like, it's gonna be okay. And I was like, what's wrong? And he was like, I'm the seventh generation in my family to go to Brown, and I'm sure I don't deserve to be here. So my grades were horrible and this, that, the other. And I was like, you know what? You're here now.
Yeah.
Own it. It's yours. You can do what your great grandfather did with the school, with his education here, or you can do what you want to do with it, or what your father or grandfather did. I don't know. But you're here. Stop crying. Like, I mean, you can cry if you want. You can like, be sad. That's okay. But at some point, you're gonna have to pick yourself up and dust yourself off and feel like you belong here. Otherwise, you're just gonna be miserable for 4 years, and that's a huge waste of money and time.
That's true.
So how did you then change from that to going and working at startups, and what was that experience like?
Honestly, I was just looking for a job. So that was the most important thing on my mind. And I knew I was graduating and I was recruiting, and it was hard after I graduated. Like, it was like even before I graduated, it was like my whole senior year was just like looking for a job, trying to find something that fit, trying to find something that fit, trying to find something that fit. And I got this job through like a kind of like vaguely, I like knew some people who like worked at the company, and so I was like, please refer me. And so like they were like, are you sure you like this? Are you sure it's the right industry for you? I was like, let me try, like I'll work hard, like give me a chance. And I had no idea what I was signing up for, to be honest. Um, but it was great. It was great. And I learned a lot. I got to build something, which was a very satisfying, rewarding experience. The company had like changed its mission. They were going into new verticals. They needed to digitize. They needed to streamline. They needed to create new departments because, when you grow from, a company that's serving like, 200 customers a year to a company that's serving 2,000 customers a year, like that's a fundamentally different company. To go from doing like products that are this size to like products that are like this size. Like you need a fundamentally different company, and being part of building that company was something that was really I learned that I love getting my hands dirty. I like working across different departments. I like making connections between different people. I think I can address a lot of like informational asymmetries. I think that's what I bring to an organization. And that's where I learned that.
As a tech investor, recently I've been seeing memes of like investors being like, "Oh, cool idea, but how can you integrate AI into this?" So like, do you think like that's the future as an investor? Like, if like I had to give you, if like let's say you had to invest a lot of money right now, would you put it all into startups with AI, or would you be like, no, this isn't the future?
So like honestly, like my person, whatever, like I just buy like me personally, like what I do with my own money, I just buy like AI chip manufacturers. Like I like Nvidia basically is like where I put my money. But like, you know, that's what I do. But as far as, investing for work, when you're investing in Pakistan, you have to realize like Uber existed for a long time before Kareem came to Pakistan, right?
Yeah.
Food delivery had existed in other countries for a long time before Eatoy and Food Panda really blew up here, right? Um, there was high speed, like 3G and LTE existed in other countries for a long time before they came to Pakistan. So I think like honestly, Pakistan right now, like we're solving for much more basic problems. Like I don't think we have like the technical expertise, like we don't have like the machine learning engineers or like the hardware engineers to like really be at the cutting edge of whatever is going on in Silicon Valley right now. But we have like 220 million people who like need stuff. And it's people who are able to cater to their actual market that are going to be able to be successful here. So, there's ways to integrate probably like ChatGPT like things into anything that you build for this market as well. But just help people get to work easily in like an affordable way. Like, like, we what do we have? We have lots of really cheap labor. Like, yes, it's mostly uneducated. Can you upskill them so that they can deliver some kind of service to somebody in a profitable way? Like, that's a way to make money. Can you manufacture something for cheap enough that you can actually sell like 4 million or 7 million pieces of it? If you can do that, like, yeah, you probably make money. But like, I think these are just things that make for good businesses, as opposed to tech businesses or startup businesses necessarily.
One question I want to end with is like what we talked about in the beginning. Like, what is your definition of tech?
Like I said, I think it's a word that actually it has a context dependent meaning. In Pakistan, I don't think a tech startup like really means anything.
Yeah.
Most of them are just selling like very basic goods and services like chai, dal, chini, atta.
Yeah.
but like on an app. You can call that tech. You can call that not tech. Like, I mean, like what is the fundamental business
But
doing?
like
It's like
for sure.
purchasing a good and like delivering it to a consumer, right? You could do, there's like, some people are doing like dynamic route optimization for like, sort of like, getting goods from point A to point B. Like, what is the best way? What is the best way to minimize the number of stops to like deliver, like, I don't know, you have a truck filled with 70 cartons of Tapal tea and you want to deliver it to 40 stores in the least possible amount of time. What route do you make? And you want to make that to be a dynamic route that's updated every day. That's tech. I would say that's tech. But yeah, I think it really depends on who you're talking to.
About how a person
And sorry?
it's like open to perception, this like one term.
Yeah. Because it's like, to me, like, just because you have an app doesn't mean you have tech.
That's true.
Well, actually, this is the last question. I know we said that previously as well, but
That's
like,
fine.
what's the best thing about being a tech investor? Like someone who works in this field.
I love getting to meet people who are building thoughtful products for their customers. And I think building something in Pakistan is really hard. Like the regulatory environment, the tax structure, like hatta system, like all of it. Like, when you're starting a company, you have to deal with all of these issues. And so I have a lot of respect for people who start companies and who work within the system and try to build something that's lasting. And so I love meeting entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I think that's it.
I think we're done. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking our time. It was a really, really fun interview, fun conversation.
No, I'm so glad.